Okay, so here's our introduction to retail metrics. These are the stats that, as a retailer who's measuring your inventory and the performance of your inventory and trying to drive as much profit into your business as you can, these are some stats that we think are the most important ones. We want to just introduce them during this presentation so you have a sense of what's coming, what to look for, and start thinking about within your own business how you can apply these to your business. But right now, let's take a look at what they all are, what they do, and how you might apply them, okay? So I like to start these always with this great quote from Lord Kelvin. He said it a very long time ago, but it's still true today. You cannot improve what you do not measure. And so there's way too many stores I find that sort of try to plan their business on sort of a colloquial basis where whatever stories they've heard from the floor or what their last customer said or something like that. The key to having a great point of sale system like Retail Pro is that there are great statistics inside the system, and you want to make sure you use those and leverage those because you've got them. And that's the basis upon which retailers win and lose, is how well they actually measure this inventory. And remember that inventory is your biggest investment. It's the thing you spend the most money on. As such, you want to make sure that you are measuring that investment very, very carefully and squeezing every dollar out of it that you can. Okay? Now, when people are looking at retail businesses, sometimes they think, well, I'm just trying to figure out how I can drive more sales, how can I get more money in the drawer. That's not always the answer. Sometimes when we're planning businesses, we actually slow down their sales but increase their profitability, because sometimes people are increasing sales by taking bigger markdowns or lowering prices and find themselves doing lots and lots of business but not getting lots of profit. It's not always the answer to increase the sales. And so as you look at these stats, you're going to notice that many of them actually also are measuring the inventory in conjunction with the sales. And that's the important part. We're measuring the flow of merchandise through the store. We're measuring the flow of the inventory through your chain. We're measuring the flow of inventory all the way through. So we're making sure that we're turning the inventory over, you're getting your profit out of it, and that, especially if you're a fashion retailer, you're on to the next season, you're on to the next thing. So here are what we think are the most important key performance indicators. And really look at that word, key. Most important, performance, what are we doing? An indicator, is it working or not? Remember, these are stats and they're going to point you in a direction to start to research, to start to look. If you've got a low stock to sales or a low sell through or something like that, why is that happening? What's driving it? Is it I have the wrong vendors, I have the wrong colors, I have an issue where I'm too broken up in sizes, I have no larges, I just have smalls, and I need to get my size scale back in balance, right? So they're indicators along those lines. Okay, the first one is days of supply, and I put the definition here for you. It's the number of days the store will remain in stock based upon the rate of sale over a given period and the amount of stock you have on hand, right? So we're looking at, based on the rate of sale that you've sold it and how much you have left, how long will you have it before you run out of stock? It's not as linear as that sounds, because obviously, you know, when you start in the beginning, you've got a full size run, you've got all the colors there. It's harder to sell those last few pieces, isn't it, than to sell the first ones. But it gives you a rough idea of how long you'll have the goods in stock. The formula for it, for those of you that love math, is your end of month inventory divided by your net sales, sales minus returns, divided by the days in the given period. So the merchandising goal here is to ensure that the days of supply does not exceed the end of the season, right? We want to be out of those goods and on to next season's goods on a timely basis. And there are some other things we can do with days of supply. We'll talk about that when we get into that presentation as well. But the idea of it is to just kind of go, based on the way things are happening right now, am I going to be out of those goods on a timely manner? The next one is sell-through percentage. Most of you might be using this already, and you'll hear your vendors talk a lot about it, but basically it's the percentage of inventory sold that was available for sale during that same period. Okay, the amount of inventory that was sold based on what was available. Okay, I had 20 pieces available, I sold 15, I had a 75% sell-through. Okay, the formula for it right there, net sales, again, sales minus returns, divided by the end of period inventory plus any inventory you've added. Okay, and lastly, its merchandising goal is we want to get the highest percentage without losing sales. You know, you might think it when you first look at that, gee, I'd love to blow out of this thing and be sold through in 2 weeks. Well, okay, that's great for that, but that means that maybe a whole bunch of customers that didn't get to see those goods and didn't actually get to buy them, so you actually missed sales because you sold through too fast. Next is the stock to sales ratio, okay? And if you look at that, stock to sales ratio, right? The definition of it, the ratio between the actual end-of-month inventory on hand in any given month to the actual sales for that same month, okay? So how many pieces did I have versus how many I sold, okay? The formula for it, again, end-of-month inventory divided by total sales for that month. And your goal here is the lowest possible number without losing sales, okay? And stock to sales ratio is an important stat, especially when you're trying to plan out what your inventory ought to be, right? It's a very important inventory planning and forecasting tool, and you use the stock to sales ratio in Retail Pro to assess whether or not your inventory plan is working. People typically have a higher stock to sales ratio at the beginning of the season. Why? Because you're going to make a great big splash at the beginning of the season to show that you've got all the best merchandise, you've got the right vendors, you've got the right colors, you've got all the right stuff on the floor. So in the beginning, you want to set in your customers' minds, hey, I've got really great stuff here, come back often and see what's going on. So that's why it's higher in the beginning, but certainly lower in the end as you're cleaning up, as you're getting the stuff out of there, as you're moving on to next season's goods. Okay? Then there's turn. The definition of turn is the turnover is the number of times that an average stock sold within a given amount of time, normally a year. There are other people that look at turn in shorter time periods. We don't recommend it. We look at it as sort of a marching 12-month thing, okay? It's your annual sales divided by your average monthly inventory, okay? Again, you want to increase your turn so that it's fast. You want to have a fast turn, but you don't want to lose sales. Sometimes, and I've seen it a lot with some retailers, where they turn the goods so quickly that what ends up happening is not enough of their customers get to see the merchandise, and so they're out of business before it even starts. You can actually really hamper your growth and stop the growth of a store by having a turn that's too quick. By the same token, if the turn is too slow, you've got to take some action to make sure you're out of those goods and on to the next thing. Okay? And then by far, my favorite investment is gross margin return on investment, or GMROI. Some people call it GMROI. GMROI, or GMROI, is the measurement of how well the inventory is turning combined with the measurement of how profitable the investment in that inventory is. Look at the formula and take a minute to really study that. It's your gross margin dollars, your profit, divided by your average inventory at cost. What does that tell you? It tells you I'm looking at what my profit is in the numerator of that, and in the denominator, I'm looking at what was my investment and how long did I hang on to the investment. That's the key of the average inventory at cost over 12 months is, what if I bought goods in January and I'm still sitting with them in December? I've had them for a very long period of time. My average inventory went up because I didn't sell through them, right? So the whole point of GMROI is to assess how profitable you are. So really take a look at that one, by the way, when we go through the different series. I think that one is probably the best measure of how well your store is doing, how well your buyers are doing, how well your salespeople are actually selling through the goods on the floor, and how well you're measuring your store's performance and how much profit you can drive out of it. Okay? Where do I get these stats? Well, certainly they're in Retail Pro. They're in a bunch of places in Retail Pro. There's some reports that drive it, and certainly there's the world-famous profile screen that you can get those out of. And for those of us that are in the world of open to buy, which is what we do at Retail Smart Guys, we certainly talk a lot about these stats because they are the bread and butter of what we live on. Don't make this mistake. There's two pieces to every retail business. There's the art of the business and the science of the business. The art of the business is the vendors, what colors, what sizes, what styles are right. Are sweaters in season this season? Are they out of season? What kind of pants are in? What's denim doing? All those kinds of things that happen in fashion retail, and this can get applied to any other segment that we were talking about, shoes or action sports or gift or any of those things, right? The art of it is what's happening, what's hot out there, what's exciting. The science of it is all of these stats, and the combination of the art and the science is what makes a really successful retail store. How do you read these? Well, that's what this whole training series is about. We're going to go through each of these stats in detail. I'm going to tell you how to read them. I'm going to tell you where to get them. And then I'm going to wrap it up with, what would I do if I were you? So there you go. A lot to look at there. Please watch these carefully. We hope you apply them well to your business, and we wish you great success.